Welcome to my weekly podcast, Inspiring Each Other. I'm Dr. Phil Worth, and tonight I'm here with Jenn Salone and her partner, Dr. Chris Ryan. As you all know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and Jenn has had her personal journey with breast cancer, and her and Chris both agreed to come in and talk about that journey. Thank you for coming in, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Jenn, when I talked to some folks last week, Kaylee and Dr. Baltazar, we talked about that moment when someone says to you, when I have to say to people, the C word, I think, I worry, I wonder if you have cancer. What was that moment like for you?
Well, first, I want to say thanks for having us. Second, I want to say that I've always been humbled by Kaylee and her spirit and her strength and what she's been through. So she was definitely a great role model for me. With that said, it was very unexpected for me. I went for a routine exam that I had gone 2016 all the way through, missed COVID 2020. So in 2021 in December, I went, and as I was leaving Elizabeth Wendy Breast Clinic, I received a phone call and was asked to turn around and go back. So I did, and I had a core needle biopsy, drove home from Rochester, and sort of hung out in the driveway with my brother Tom, and Dr. Seifert called me that evening and then said, it did come back positive as cancer. And I think your question was, how did I react to that, right?
Yeah, like so all of that hits you, right? And what's the emotion? What's the was Tom with you the whole time? Were you up there by yourself? You know, what was that?
So I was in Rochester by myself because it was just a routine exam. A little bit of a blur coming home because I think I sort of was like, well, they don't just call you back for no reason. And then I was in the driveway with my brother the whole time, and he was there with me when I took the phone call. The first thing that went through my head was, my kids. Are my kids old enough to make it without me? And so that's the first thing that went through my head. And
It's as a mom, right? Oftentimes as a dad, we get sucked to our kids as soon as there is any little bump in our road. So I think it says a lot about you as a person. Where does it go from there? How do you tell Chris?
well, I guess I should let Chris tell that story because I called him.
She called me up and she said, well, I have breast cancer. Just like, well, I got to go to the grocery store. Long pause. And she said, are you there? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. The only thing that first went through my brain was I didn't want her to have any suffering and the pain. And then worried about losing her. But her strength, I have breast cancer. Let's go on. I was like, wow.
Last week when we talked to Dr. Baltazar a little bit, and in Kaylee's big support system, and as emotional as Kaylee was and how wonderful a woman she is, what was a little surprising to me, she said some people are very quiet and soft-spoken and keep the whole journey to themselves and just kind of get through it. Where would you put yourself on that spectrum?
I would put myself on that spectrum of I have breast cancer. I don't have time for this. Let's get rid of it. And there are people that are in much worse situations than me. And I tend to take that
I love
avenue a lot. And it's definitely true in this because I feel I'm definitely one of the lucky ones. I have over a dozen women that I can say I know personally that have had breast cancer.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, we've also lost a couple. So very aware of how fortunate I am for early detection. I had an amazing doctor that just had a personality that meshed with mine very well. So I went in and said, save it. My mind's made up. Get rid of them. I have stuff to do.
Yeah, talk to me about that. So when when you sit down and have to talk about, are we going to do a lumpectomy or a mastectomy or radiation or chemotherapy, and there's a lot in that choice, right? And so as you're sitting there, was it Dr. Seifert you said?
So Dr. Seifert was the Elizabeth Wendy
Okay.
clinic doctor who diagnosed,
Okay.
and then I was referred to Dr. Rachel Farkas.
Okay.
Um,
So you're sitting with Dr. Farkas, and how's that go?
she's fun. I choose my doctors wisely.
I guess so.
um, it pretty much went like that. We walked in and I said, I just want you to take both of my breasts, do a bilateral mastectomy, and I don't have time for treatment, and I don't have time for any of this. And um, so right away, she knew my personality, and her personality came right back with, well, that's great, but I'm the doctor, and I'm going to tell you what your options are.
I love it.
So then we went through options.
As she goes through any of those options, was there ever a moment where you were like, maybe? Or were you just like, I know this is what I want to do?
I was just
Let's do this.
heading down the path and said, this is what I'm going to do. I never wavered from that decision.
And emotional, right? These are kind of part of us, right? And all of a sudden you're just saying, let's get rid of these things and move on to what's next. So walk me through that, right? The emotion and then the actual, the procedure and the recovery.
So I was diagnosed on November 30th, 2021. So the month of December 2021, we go through all the blood work and the pre-surgery because they scheduled surgery for January 14th. It was diagnosed, and a month and a half later, I was scheduled. So it went quick. There wasn't a lot of time to lament or to second guess. And again, I just have to say that at that time I was still, oh my gosh, my kids. One, I don't want them to be scared. Two, I have to make it through this. And that's pretty much the attitude we took. And then surgery happened. It slowed me down a little bit.
Before the surgery, Chris, what did you notice, right? As Jen's going through these 6-8 weeks, right, of life-changing stuff, what do you notice about Jenn as she's going through that?
Determination. Strength.
Yeah. It sounds like that's who you are, right? I've known you a long time, and that inner strength is something that you've always had. And then surgery.
And then surgery.
How was that?
That changed a lot. It wasn't recognizable at that time. Looking back, I can probably give you a better answer. So, surgery was the physical part, right? There's physical pain. There's drains and tubes and bags and some care. I'm not one to sit still, so my biggest my biggest challenge was being laid up, and I also had a plastic surgeon, Dr. Stephen Vega, who works directly with Dr. Farkas. So he's in the room for all appointments, all surgeries. So they piggybacked, and I knew after the January 14th surgery that I was going to go into surgery again on March 15th with Dr. Vega and Dr. Farkas there as well. So I'm very thankful, Dr. Worth, because my mom was still there when I was diagnosed, and my mom was there to take care of me and get me through that. I made it through the second surgery in March, and then people call it a breast cancer journey. I call life a journey with experiences that happen along the way, and that's with no disrespect to anybody's situation or the semantics that they use. For me, life's a journey, and the last 2.5 years has been quite the extraordinary journey. So within 10 months of diagnosis, I also lost my mom to cancer that was unexpected. So I didn't really have a chance to pay attention to my breast cancer experience or journey.
It emotionally so complicated, right? And when we're in those moments in our life when it all seems to be falling apart, sometimes there's more, right? And more falls apart. And how can this possibly be all happening at the same time? How did you change as that happens, right? Because it sounds like she was your nurse and your rock as you're going through this. I know Chris well enough to know that he's not great at drains, this guy, right? And so,
No, Mom did the
Or
drain.
showering.
Oh yeah, there was the whole showering. Yeah, there's a lot that goes through the care after this surgery. And like I said, I was spared radiation and chemotherapy, thankfully. I can't imagine how much worse it is with those two things, with how bad it was just with the surgery. But yeah, then Mom was there.
She became the caregiver. Went
And then I
from her mom giving her showers to her giving her mom showers.
and that's in weeks.
That's
Right.
within 4 weeks
Yeah.
of my second surgery. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
When you are going through it, or when I was going through it, I just sort of have this personality, much like when I saw Dr. Farkas the first time and said, and get rid of him, I have stuff to do. And I sort of took on that same mentality through all of this, that I had to take care of my mom. My dad, well, I took care of him at home. I'm going to take care of my mom at home. And then we'll get better later.
Is as we talked to Kaylee, last week, she over and over referenced, what a rock star her dad was to support her through all this. And your mom was that very same rock star for you as the journey begins. And then, to use your words, that life journey all of a sudden flips, and now you're mom's caregiver.
I have a really amazing support system.
Yeah.
First and foremost, my kids, Chris, within my house, my support system. Obviously, my brother and my sister-in-law live next door. They're always there. I have a really strong network of friends. There was no shortage of food visits or or anything we needed. So that helped.
The basketball team.
The basketball team surprised me and all had pink socks on for a game. And
That's awesome.
And it's nice. It's, a small town. I don't complain about it because the community comes together in hard times.
I think one of the things over my career doing what I do is how wonderful our small town communities are. And we might have differences every day. And then when the bad stuff happens, we really figure out how to unite around each other and kind of help, right? People get through whatever they need to get through. Chris, what was different with your relationship? As she's going through this, that can be hard to figure out. How do I support? How do I help? What do I do? Do I wash her socks? Do I rub her back? Do I give her a hug? Do I not? Like, that emotional support can be really hard to figure out.
Yeah, I just became caregiver. And she told me a long time ago, no matter what, just love me. And just loved her.
And that means a lot of things, right?
Yeah, it's you asked in one of the questions, is it, did you evolve through it? I don't think you evolve while you're going through it. I think you're through it. And you lose the ability to kind of like watch yourself, and you get lost in it. You become it. Right now, like, this podcast is actually healing for us because all the stuff we've gone through, we're just redigesting and say, oh my, hey, we're different people than what we were before. And sometimes in a relationship, you lose that. And you lose yourself in your relationship. And in the caregiving, you got to take care of yourself, but we ended up actually becoming closer after all the chaos.
It one of the things is I've gone through some stuff, right? The thing that my therapist said to me over and over is that your identity changes, and whether it's cancer or mom or a different relationship with your significant other, your identity changes, and then you have to kind of, is the word you use, Chris, evolve, right? You got to work through that change. Any tips for someone that might be working through that change now, you guys?
My
Go ahead.
yeah. My recommendation for anyone, anytime, is chat it out. If we don't communicate, uh, we can't help each other. We can't fix things. We can't. It's harder to get through. And although that's my biggest recommendation, I think I didn't do that at certain times, and it,
You get lost in the
Yeah.
role of just surviving.
Yeah.
And you lose that, hey, how are you? What do you want to do for life? Versus, the kids and this and that. You lose that connection of us because you're too busy taking care of each other. Is that weird?
Yeah. So true. And so challenging to feel and understand when you're right in the middle of the chaos, because you just got to get the next drain out. You just got to get mom to the shower. You just got to get mom to the appointment,
you
right?
got to
There's
get your will written.
there's always something, right, on your to-do list as you're going through this stuff. What was your self-care?
Self-care was bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
My self-care was really bad until August 28th of 2024, which was the first.
That's a couple years, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a couple years.
Yeah, which was the first day I started therapy, was counseling. So prior to all of this, I had gone down the path of yoga, meditation, teaching, and I lost that. And I lost myself for a while. And I'm getting that back now.
I can see it.
But it's taken a while.
I can see it. You're glowing again,
Well,
right?
thank
You
you.
look like your old self again. You're smiling again. The world really beat you down in a lot of ways. And breast cancer was just that first step, right? And as we all go through this, in my world, when I'm talking to people in the office, I talk about the shit in the box theory, right? And so when life happens to us, sometimes we just take this stuff and we stuff it in this box in the back of our head so that we can just move forward to get through the next day, the next moment, the next bath for mom. And then somewhere along, the box is so full and you're so overwhelmed and you're a different person than you were 2, 3, 4 months back. And it sounds like maybe you had a lot of stuff in your box.
Yeah, we definitely had had an overflowing freight train, I call it. But again, Chris is a rock, very supportive. Anyone that knows him just knows that he's just built that way. My kids, just stoic, supportive. Their father, also again supportive. I'm just thankful to have supportive people and great doctors.
If someone else is going through any of these type of experiences, what advice do you have about the self-care?
My advice about the self-care is to recognize and be aware that your mental health is just as, if not more important than your physical health. And the reason I say that is because I can break both elbows, because I did that within the last 2 years, and get through the pain and the annoyance of being laid up again. But if I don't address what it does to me mentally and emotionally, that's when you lose yourself. So my advice is the mind body's a true strong connection. And if you don't treat both, you're truly not probably getting the full benefit of healthiness.
Yeah, you're physically you get better, and you seem to be creeping up from the physical, in your world, disaster, right? But then the emotional disaster somehow gets left behind. And with what I do, I find some of the hardest parts are people who don't know how to sit still. And I force you to sit still. It gets really complicated, right? And Chris helped me so much with yoga when he talked about sometimes we have to do all this really hard yoga work and get exhausted and tired just so that we can sit still and breathe for a few minutes at the end of it. Could you help her with any of that stuff as she was going through this? Or was it hard because of all the stuff?
Yeah, that's the stuff. Like life, right? You can't let life be you. I became life. And then the life, if I was happy, sad, that was what I was. You have to sit back and watch life and say, whoa, Ming has a tough day. Like when you say you put stuff in the box,
Yeah.
we didn't have time to heal emotionally, go through the stages of grief. So you bury it and you go on. But those things come back to haunt you. You have to cry, you have to let it out, and then you have to get to acceptance. Yeah. That the serenity prayer, what do we have control over?
I love it. Anything different that you guys do lifestyle wise now, right? It sounds like we're on the other end of this, right? You both have two new identities, slightly different from who you were before. What's fun and new now as you're on the other end of that journey?
We're still getting there.
Yeah.
You don't know all the story of what's been
Yeah.
going on. There's
Yeah.
other things that went on in our lives that just this past week, something terrible just kind of finalized that.
Sorry.
And then you ask for this podcast, and we look at each other, and we're like, "Oh, can we do this?" And then we're like, "No, this is good."
Well, no, we went back and forth, and I
Yeah.
said, I think I should call Dr. Worth and tell him I'm not the person for this interview. Because the first thought through my head again was, people have it worse. And I can't really explain a breast cancer journey because, one, I full steam ahead. That's my personality, right? Two, some other things came up that I chose to put the priority of those things over myself. And again, like Chris said, the last couple months have been dealing with yet another family tragedy. I've lost my nephew. So it just piled up. So where am I at today as I sit on this couch talking to you? I am actively weekly in therapy. It's saving me.
Good.
My doctors are compassionate and understanding, family supportive. And when you look at it as life is the journey, rather than the breast cancer was a journey or the mom passing was a journey or the other tragedies as journeys, but rather things that just happened along life's journey. Now I'm in a mindset where I can start to address those. I've started to work through the stages of grief. It's a lot easier to avoid them. It's a lot easier not to practice yoga. It's a lot easier not to take those deep belly breaths. But that didn't work for me for the last 2.5 years. So I'm back on my mat and we're just supporting each other on trying to live that healthy, mindful lifestyle.
If you looked back, you had a mastectomy, you had a reconstruction, and now here mom gets sick. If you looked back and someone is in that point, would you tell them, let's go to therapy now? Let's go talk about this now so that maybe we can get through things a little easier in the future?
Absolutely. Because at that time, just prior to my diagnosis, I felt like I was in my prime of living a pretty healthy lifestyle. We were we were doing good things.
Yeah.
So but I didn't recognize it, Dr. Worth. I didn't recognize that I needed what I was giving others because I was always the caregiver, the fixer, and I got to a point that I didn't recognize that I needed help and I needed a little fixing, and that was humbling.
It's so humbling, right? There is, as I went through some of my stuff, I can't tell you how many different books I read. And there was a book by Edith Eger, and the title of the book is The Gift. And she was a 16-year-old girl that went through World War II Germany and the Holocaust. And now she is a 92-year-old still working as a therapist. And as she's writing about all the atrocities, losing her family, watching people die, she had the courage to call it a gift. Looking back 50 years later, she is able to look back at this horrible, horrible experience in her life and go, you know what? This was a gift for me because it allowed me to get to a place where I am capable of helping more people as a psychologist than I ever would have dreamed. What? Like, as I'm reading this, I thought, how wonderful. But how do you get there? And it sounds like you're getting there, right? We're not there yet, but you're moving in that direction.
Oh yeah, that's always been in the forefront of my mind is if someone needs help, I'm there. So if you make me sit in a chair for 3 months, or if I have to sit in a chair for 3 months, that's hard for me because I'm not out doing. But life sometimes says you need a pause. Yeah. And I think that's what it was for me, a pause. And again, I can say with probably 100% certainty that it won't be too long that I'll also be thankful for the experiences, as tragic as they were, because it does change you, and you can allow it to change you for the better or for the worse. And my only option is to just try to do better, change for the better.
And all the podcasts that I've done with people that have been through some stuff, right? Everybody talks about the giving back, right? What helped me through my hard time, whatever that hard time was, is the giving back to someone else to help them get through that hard time. Or is there stuff you're doing now to try to give back to other people in your little circle? Are you still reaching out and trying to help?
Yeah, it's just sort of like a thing we do all the time.
Yeah.
They have a new rule, the ladies. They no longer go alone to their regular visits. She schedules a visit with a friend just in case. I felt so bad that I wasn't there for her that day. And she's taken upon herself to have her friends go with her, so they schedule the same day. That's a big thing, ladies. It's a good thing to do. Lymphatic drainage, I wish, that is just a miracle of, I wish they would look into that. Can you give a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so the,
What else would
swelling
you
that can
suggest
happen
to
after
people?
a surgery.
Yeah.
Walk us through your swelling.
Yeah,
piece.
that was a little unexpected because we thought it was muscle, and here we're grinding on it, and you don't grind on lymphatic drainage. But so lymphatic drainage is the lymph system getting backed up because I obviously had lymph nodes removed. So the system doesn't really work the same, and then you get swelling and you get pain. And there is this lymphatic drainage massage that we could use some more therapists, by the way. They're sort of hard to find, but it helps.
And the connection between the doctor's offices would be,
Yeah, there's just my opinion through the process is maybe a little better connection between offices. With the understanding that, for example, Dr. Farkas, right? I mean, her job is to go in there and get rid of the cancer, and her book is full.
Yeah.
However, understanding the next step of treatment and recovery in the lymphatic drainage, especially, would be helpful.
And as you went through your process, right? And when I drop the ball with stuff that I do, right? And this is an example, right? Because we can't do all of it perfectly well, right? And so, um, did you find this all on your own? Like, here's this lymphatic massage person. I Googled it and I found it.
No, the office told you, right?
Well, they had, I was referred to physical therapy.
Okay.
So there was a little confusion with that. So
Yeah.
when I went to a physical therapist, they're like, you shouldn't be here. It's a little too soon.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
Yes.
we did a little more research and then realized that this is not getting my strength back. This is trying to get a system, a body function system to work. And then once we found that, it was like,
The results are immediate. She got off the table. There was less swelling, less pain. It's just amazing, and I think that
That's awesome.
yeah.
How long of a session? So what's that mean? Are they rubbing your arm? What was your lymphatic massage?
Yeah, so my lymphatic massage was again with an amazing practitioner. I've just been blessed with amazing doctors and practitioners. But it's real light, topical rubbing to get the lymphatic fluid flowing. They say it's like 4 bus stops, right? 2 in your hips, 2 here, and if
The
you
main flows.
Yeah.
and if you take some seats off of one of the bus stops, there's going to be some congestion. So they use some tools. They use, some stim and
Gentle massage and just
gentle
get it flowing.
massage.
It's
So I would go to
amazing.
Rochester 2 to 3 days a week to get that done.
2 to 3 days a week for a month, 2 to 3 days a week for a couple of months. How long does that take to get you feeling a little better?
Yeah, up until I should have kept going. So, mom
Up
got
until
ill
things
up
happened.
until things
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
And then, so I was in discomfort probably longer than I had to because I stopped therapy.
Was there anything that they told you to do on your own? I've seen ladies with the sleeves and did you do any of the home stuff?
We did, yep. And I wore the sleeves. Heat, and the lymphatic drainage therapist also said, you're not going to function in the heat the same. And Dr. Worth, you know me as a patient. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. She was right. So a lot of it was just trial and error. And again, I just went through the motions.
Now that we're 3-4 years out from all of this, is there any stuff left that you have to deal with some swelling from time to time? Do you still wear the sleeves? Do you think about going back to the PT and the massage, or you just kind of cope and move forward at this point?
No, I'm trying to feel better physically as well.
Okay.
So that's something that will be for life. Different things will make it flare up, but it's something that never goes away. And that's the other thing is, so we're coming up on 3 years. And up until just recently, with your help and with the help of therapy, I'm just now starting to feel a little bit like myself. But coupled with breast cancer and everything else, losing your womanhood is also mentally taxing. So I wish I had done therapy sooner because it took too long to start to feel normal again.
I went through my stuff, and I went through therapy a lot. During that process, I lost parts of some of my toes. And I didn't talk about it once until about 8 months into therapy when I mentioned it because my toes happened to hurt that day. And my therapist looked me right in the eye and he said, that was a really traumatic event in the ocean where you lost some of your toes. And for some reason, you haven't mentioned it for 8 months. You had both your breasts surgically removed and you didn't think about it or talk about it for a long period of time because you couldn't. You had to get through the next thing. It's eye-opening when you think about things that way. It was soul opening for me. You're in a better place now. Chris, what advice for the wingmen? So when you're the significant other, the husband, the support network, and your wingman is going through all this stuff, what advice do you give to the wingman to be a good wingman?
Just be love. And then the next thing is take care of yourself. The caregivers sometimes need to take care of themselves too. We all know that.
Yeah.
We always had a rule, didn't we? 1 hour to yourself every day, and then an hour once in a while just to kind of hang out. And when life becomes, say, chaotic, you don't take those hours, then life runs you versus you experiencing life.
And it's easy to get caught up in that, right? It's easy to get lost in that.
And if you look at it like you said and Jen says, evolution doesn't occur without obstacles.
Yeah.
And the saying that you can't make a diamond without pressuring a stone.
Yeah.
So in life, whenever you go through stuff, I've had the biggest growth in my life when I went through the biggest dramas.
It through all the stuff, right, that I've read and thought about, that's an underlying truth, right? Everybody talks about, the obstacle is the way.
Mm-hmm.
The mountain is the way. When you finally get over that mountain, you're like, hey, I'm okay. And yeah, that was awful, but I'm kind of on the other side.
Actually, better.
Yeah.
Would you be doing this podcast now? Would we be in this room? Did I, when I was going to chiropractic college, figure I was going to be a yogi? Would I think I'd be talking to a medical doctor about healthcare, life, and just general things? This is beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that was my little life journey, right? And it's been fun, and it's brought me so much joy.
Chaos.
Yeah.
You can't have hot without
Yes. What other stuff, Jen, through the actual breast cancer piece, right? We had the wonderful tip about lymphatic massage. Are there any other physical things that you would say, gosh, I wish I would have known that before? If someone else is beginning this breast cancer journey, right, what would be your advice to them?
My advice to them would be this. If you have breast cancer and you have a bilateral mastectomy and then you have reconstructive surgery, it's not the same as going and getting breast implants.
Okay.
It was a big misconception I had, right? I'm like, hey, we're going to get rid of this. People have implants and then they live life. It's not the same.
Explain that to me. What's that really mean?
Yeah, what that really means is, one, it's a different procedure. And you lose feeling. I couldn't move for a while, so I also, I put the weight on and I wasn't able to practice. And there's something to be said about being able to do those things, being able to move and feel like yourself, and
just raise your arms above your head.
Just raise your arms
Yeah.
above your head or stretch a certain way.
Yeah.
So there were things that I didn't expect that were so limiting with that.
And women that I've seen go through this, right? And I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a general practitioner, right? But there's tissue expanders and sometimes multiple surgeries and a little bigger and then a little loose. And then, I got a little infection over here and it's open. And did you have any of those things as you went through? And what?
Yeah. So, one of the main things that is somewhat new that I did go through is called nipple sparing.
Oh.
So Dr. Vega, again, the plastic surgeon, was always with Dr. Farkas, and one of the things was to determine if I would be able to, if we would be able to spare them. And you don't know until you get out of surgery and you wake up and you say, do I still have them?
Is it a boy or a girl?
Is it a boy or girl? And they were like, hey, you still have them. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So they've come a long way with this.
And I think from the medical perspective, a previous generation would have done what we thought was best for you. And I think all of us in medicine in general are better at asking, how can we help you? What is important to you as you go through this? And making it all be about, your choices as you go through nipples or no nipples, tattoos or no tattoos, right? There's a lot of different options as you go through this.
Yeah. And I would just say to a woman going through it that don't let your mind go crazy. And of all people, right? I taught that, right? The mindfulness component, and let's not go there and let's not make up scenarios, but I did anyway. So, any little ache and pain, you're like, oh my gosh, do I have cancer? Is my cancer back? Did cancer spread? And again, it's your doctors that are there to reassure you. And I have to thank you for that because
You're
I
welcome.
went in your office quite crazy a couple times.
You had a lot going on, and one of the things that I learned from you guys is go to your breath, right? So there is so much in breath work as you get to that. I'm going to call it the monkey mind phase, right? Where, oh my God, I just had cancer and I took my boob off, and oh, wait, is this cancer back? Is this cancer here? And your mind just gets spinning. And in those moments, it is so hard to just go to your breath. And if you took the minute to sit down and meditate and breathe and just get through that, right, it would just bring you down a notch where you could approach it like the observer person, right, and not the person in the middle of the world on fire. And the ironic thing is, you taught all that for years.
I know.
And in the middle of it, when the world is on fire, somehow that's when we all lose that part of ourselves as we're going through things. And that's really when we need it the most.
Chris would say, Salone, take a deep belly breath. And I would say, I just can't. And it's hard to explain. And I guess I'll explain it this way. I was teaching a yoga class one time, and I made this statement while teaching, just let it go. And afterwards, a friend who was also a student in the class came up to me, and we chatted out that statement that I made. And she said, sometimes you got to sit a little bit longer and feel that emotion. And that hit me hard because it's not always as easy as just go to your breath or let it go or let it be. And some of those cliche sayings, when you're going through it, you don't want to hear them, right? So we had that. We had moments where I'm like, take your yoga and go that way.
I'm sure go that way are the words that you chose
Those
to
were
use.
not, but I was warned by Paul that I had to keep it PG here. But with that said, you got to feel your emotions. You have to express them. You got to communicate it out. Don't unpack there. I unpacked in some stages that weren't healthy. And again, up until August 28, 2024, when I started, when I found my person and started to work on me, it wasn't about what happened to me. It wasn't about anybody else. It was, why are you reacting that way? And why, so that's what we're doing. And I'm on the other side of that hill now. Like there's some light, and I'm still going through some stuff, but there's light.
And it's such a great feeling when you feel that light for the first time, right? And my stuff, there was a moment when I laughed. And for months, I didn't think I was ever going to laugh again. And when you laugh and it hits you, you go, wait a minute, am I alive again? What just happened?
Felt good.
That felt really good. And it's nice when you feel that again. And the words that my guy uses all the time is, I don't want to be Pollyanna, and so just relax, just let it go, right? Those are all the things that we say. And all of those things are 100% true. But when you're in the middle of it, it is so hard to hear that, and it is almost impossible to do. So good for you for getting through. Good for you for having the courage to go to that next step.
Thanks.
What else, you guys? What other things do you want to share about your journey through this awful disease that got complicated by life's journey?
I tell, I'm very candid, as you know, I'm very open. There's no subject that is taboo for me. So I'm very open with women when I see them, and I say, just go. And if you need someone to go with you, I'll go with you. But it's so important to not miss your preventative medical appointments because early detection saves lives, period. Um, and it's ironic because I was every year and I missed 2020 because of COVID. I blame everything on COVID. And then I went 2021 and was diagnosed.
You're allowed, right? Because to criticize our industry, we sucked. We were really not good at preventative healthcare because the world was on fire, and we were focusing on the fire and trying to figure out how do we put out this fire. But the kitchen was flooding over here, right? And there was a leak in the window over there. So many patients missed preventative screening of whatever screening thing that we were screening for as we were in the middle of COVID because we couldn't do it.
Which is like
and,
life.
And we couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And it was hard. And your issue is part of that COVID journey where all of us on the healthcare side of things dropped the ball a little bit with prevention. And I'm sorry for that. I wish we could take that part back and do it a little better. But it's hard.
However, Dr. Worth.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. That was new for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So my statement on that was definitely not to be over critical in any way of the medical profession or how things transpired for me, but also to say we all need to take it a little easier on ourselves, right? Because it's our first time at everything.
Yeah.
And that's another lesson that I'm learning. This is my first time at motherhood, so cut me some slack. It's my first time doing this. So, and that would be another recommendation that I would have to people is life is precious. Enjoy the moments, take the pictures, and stop being so hard on yourself.
Yeah, I think the words that I use when I talk about that sometimes are evaluate without emotion. So evaluate where you are, evaluate what you did great today and what maybe you could do a little bit better, but eliminate the emotional piece as you're going through that. And that's really hard to do sometimes, really hard to do. Chris, any other caregiver advice?
Not really, other than surround yourself with good people. There's a lot of good people in this world, and keep positive. Your brain will automatically go to the negative, so pick yourself up and find good people and put yourself around good things, and good things will happen.
I love it. Well, you guys, thank you so much for spending some time with me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your very candid and emotional journey with everybody. And hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, well, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
My pleasure.